Trying to understand English grammar is like trying to solve a mystery. English grammar is irregular, contradictory, and confusing. Fortunately, though, you don't have to walk these dark streets of grammatical confusion by yourself. I'm English teacher Paul Duke, and on this show I'll be your grammar detective. Each week, we'll investigate communication crimes and suspicious sentences, context clues and example evidence. Together, we'll solve these English mysteries once and for all. Welcome to Hard-Boiled English Live. Hello, grammar gumshoes, and welcome to Hard-Boiled English Live. It is March 8th, 2024, and I'm thrilled and honored to be with you once again. I'm your humble host and grammar detective, Paul Duke, and I'm streaming to you live from Vancouver, Canada, to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Live Space, and actually this evening I'm streaming live to TikTok. So wherever you are, and whichever platform you're watching on, welcome to the show. Now, if you are watching on TikTok, I'm pleased to see you. Thank you for joining me. However, this show is really designed for YouTube so that I can use the full span of the whiteboard. So if you want to watch the show tonight, I highly recommend going to my profile and clicking on the YouTube channel link there, and that will take you to the live stream. This show is really better suited for YouTube than TikTok. Plus, TikTok tends to reverse the image problematically. So, for example, English words can look strange. So if you're on TikTok, go to my profile and click on the YouTube link and join us over there. All right? On this show, we investigate your English grammar mysteries and hopefully solve them. And tonight, we've got an excellent question sent to us by one of our regular viewers, Mr. Jonas. So we're going to get to that in a few minutes. But again, if you're joining us on TikTok, you're not going to get the full benefit of this show. This show is designed for a wide screen so I can talk about grammar on the whiteboard. So if you're on TikTok and you want to watch this show, please go to my profile and click over to the YouTube channel, okay? Now, I'm sure we're going to have some people joining late. However, it's not really designed for TikTok. However, I've got a whole bunch of new connections and friends on TikTok, so I want to invite you to our YouTube live stream. So go over to YouTube at The Grammar Detective 2. At The Grammar Detective 2. You'll find us on YouTube, and you can see the full live stream with all the graphics and production value that we have there. To start things off, I'd like to say hello to Jonas Taleb, who's in Morocco. We also have Ya Salamo, Shakila Mumtaz from Pakistan. We have Suwan from, I think, Malaysia or Indonesia. I can't remember. We have Miss Pallavi joining from India, but she's still too sleepy. We have with us Chris from Brazil. Welcome, Chris. If you're just joining us, please say hello in the comment threads and tell us where you're watching from. Yes, so if you're watching on TikTok, this show is actually designed for widescreen. So go to my profile, click on the YouTube link, and jump over to the live stream, because this show is actually designed for a widescreen format, not TikTok. So I'd love for you guys to join us on the show, but please jump over from TikTok to YouTube, okay? And find us in my YouTube channel link in the profile. We've got Doreen McIntyre joining us from TikTok. Okay, so It's working. TikTok is great for meeting new people, but the challenge for me is that it's not ideal for streaming my show. It's okay for streaming other shows, but not my show. My show needs the whiteboard. So if you go over to YouTube, you'll see the picture looks very different. All you'll see is the whiteboard. So, TikTok fans, please go to my profile, click on the YouTube channel, and join us on that live stream. And in a few minutes, I'll be popping off of the TikTok channel anyway. Also with us this evening, we have Tesafalem. Hopefully I'm saying your name correctly. I apologize if I make a mess of it. Again, so tonight we're going to take a look at a really fascinating grammar question that one of our viewers has given me. And that's what we do on this show. I answer your grammar questions, break it down on the board, really get into it. And hopefully you can understand English grammar a little better. Okay, so please join the show. It's an interactive show. It's not just me delivering a lesson. I'm responding to your questions and building the show around it. So tonight we have two segments. We have one we'll kick off in a few moments, which is a short vocabulary segment. And then we'll get into our major English mystery. Okay? So if you're just joining the show, please say hello in the comment threads. Tell me where you're watching from. And if you haven't, please join us on the YouTube channel. If you're watching on TikTok, go to my profile, click on the YouTube channel, because this live stream is really designed for widescreen format, so I can use the whiteboard. It's actually much wider than the TikTok screen. And I see a lot of people joining on TikTok, which is wonderful, but you're not going to get the benefit of my show. So jump over to YouTube at The Grammar Detective. Okay, TikTokers, go to my profile, click the YouTube link to see the full live stream. So how's everyone doing? Everyone doing all right? Everyone studying their English diligently? I hope so. I hope the weather's nice wherever you live. And that you're doing well, staying healthy. Tonight we've got a really interesting question. We'll get to in a few moments. But if you have questions, please type it into the YouTube comment thread. And hopefully we'll have time this evening to answer the questions. But if not, we can do it next week. Let me just check on something here. So we've actually got a lot of viewers on TikTok. So TikTok viewers, I'm addressing you. My live stream is really designed for YouTube, for the full width. So if you want to watch the show this evening, jump over to YouTube, go to my profile, click on the YouTube channel link, and that'll take you right to the live stream. Okay, that's the best way to watch the show. It's not really designed for vertical format. And the reason is quite simple. We investigate grammar issues, and I need the full width of the whiteboard, which goes to either side, right? It's not a vertical format. So please jump over from TikTok to YouTube. I know you love TikTok, but it's not ideal for everything. My show is better on YouTube. So if you want to watch the show this evening, go to my profile, click on the YouTube channel, and join us for the live stream on YouTube. Okay. Alrighty, guys. Well, let's get to our first segment, which is related to vocabulary. And this is the other reason why you shouldn't watch my show on TikTok. You won't see the graphics and the animations that help you learn. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's move to our first segment. Let me just clear the captions, and we'll get to it. And by the way, if any of our viewers who are on the YouTube channel can jump over to TikTok and maybe put a message there or post the link to the live stream on YouTube, post it in the TikTok feed, that would be helpful. I don't have access to that the way I'm set up here. Great. Where's YouTube link? Okay, so someone's watching on Twitch. Here, I'll put the QR code right on the screen. So if you're watching on Twitch, you should be able to see this. Just scan the QR code. It'll take you right over to the YouTube channel. Okay? And if you're on TikTok, go to my profile, click on the YouTube channel, and you'll go right into the full live stream and join us there. Okay, my friend Bisumth, I'm not sure how you pronounce that, Bisumth, the YouTube link, I'll put it on screen again. It's this QR code that'll take you right to the channel. Okay? Yep, just scan that QR code with your phone right on screen here on Twitch, and that'll take you over to our YouTube channel, which is where you'll find this live stream, but you'll also find the recordings of all the past live streams, as well as my long-form series, English Weirdness. In recent weeks, I've changed my YouTube channel entirely, switched over to a whole new channel. The old one had some problems and it got a bit corrupted. Okay, so hopefully you find the YouTube link. Bizu from Brazil. Great to have you with us. It's always great to have Brazil in the house. Did you get the QR code? I hope so. Join us on YouTube. Twitch is fine too, of course. You can see the full show on Twitch. The problem really is TikTok. So if you're watching on TikTok and you want to see this live stream, it's really designed for YouTube and it's widescreen, so I can use my whiteboard. So if you're on TikTok and you want to watch the show, go to my profile, The Grammar Detective, and click on the YouTube link. Join us on the YouTube live stream, okay? Okay, let's get to our first segment. Where are we? Okay. So the first segment this evening that we're going to look at is a vocabulary segment, and let's introduce it. So guys, every week I want to take a look at what I call vocabulary violations. And vocabulary violations, I know it sounds dramatic, but it's just for the theme. Of course, you don't go to jail if you use the wrong word or if you use the word incorrectly. But it's always better to work towards precision, because I firmly believe that in English, every single word has a single meaning. It has a distinct meaning. Even things we call synonyms, I actually don't believe that they have the same meaning. They have a similar meaning, they're related, they may even be close, but they're not identical. If we had two words in the language that were identical, over the history of the language, one of them would fall away. One of them would stop being used and just fall out of use entirely. That's how language evolves. But if we are living in 2024 and we still have two words, I can almost guarantee you that those two words have two different meanings. So, if you want to use English with precision and clarity, it's good to learn the meanings and how distinct they are. So we're going to do this every week. This evening, I would like to take a look at the difference between two words. And the question is, what's the difference between efficient and effective? Efficient and effective. Now, I see a lot of users use the word efficient. They'll say things like, oh, I have a new job and I really want to work efficient. Okay, you can certainly work efficiently in your job, but you can also work effectively. Your work can be effective, right? Or if you're sick, you want to take some medicine, you have a headache, you want to take some medicine, and you take the medicine, and then you feel good. Was that medicine efficient or effective? What's the difference? So today I want to look at that quickly. So let's look at the first word. The first word is efficient. Okay, so efficient is an adjective. It describes a noun like medicine or pill or work. And what does it mean? It means doing something in a good, careful, and complete way with no waste of time, energy, or money. Okay? And that's the key to this meaning. Sorry, I'm backwards here, guys. The key to the meaning is no waste. So for example, if you had a car, well, to drive a car, you need to fill it with gasoline, fuel, or electricity if you have an electric car. And you want that fuel to last for a long time. In other words, you want the car to perform well, but without wasting the fuel. Right? So you often hear cars described as fuel efficient. That's important for a car. Okay? So for the example here, my Toyota car is more efficient with fuel than my truck. Right? A truck works very hard carrying heavy weights, but it uses a lot of fuel. It's not efficient. Not efficient. Your Toyota small car might be very efficient. So you can drive it a lot with not a lot of fuel. That's efficient. So what does effective mean? Well, effective doesn't have this element of waste, of no waste. Effective just means, it's an adjective as well, so that's where they're similar and maybe confusing. Producing the result that is wanted or intended, producing a successful result. Okay? No mention of waste. In other words, it doesn't matter. When something doesn't matter how much effort, money, or fuel goes into it. What matters is the result here. Okay, so efficient, what's important is that you don't waste time, money, or energy. With effective, what's important is the result. You want the successful result. So for example, if I'm sick and I have a headache and I take medicine, I don't care if it's efficient. I want it to be effective. I want it to fix my headache. That's all I care about is the result. I do not care if it's efficient. I don't care if it's even expensive. If I'm really sick and the medicine is expensive, I'll probably pay for it. Right? I don't care if I waste the money because I want the result. So which one is most commonly used in situations like work? If you're describing work, you might want to work efficiently because you don't want to waste your time, you don't want to waste your company's money, and you don't want to waste your energy. Right? You don't want to get tired after 2 hours of working. But sometimes the result is more important. Right? So it all depends. And that's why these words can be confusing because they kind of look similar, right? Effective, efficient. And they have this meaning of good result, but one of them really needs to have this meaning of no wasted time, money, or energy. Effective doesn't care. For something to be effective, all you care about is the result. Okay? I'm just looking at the comments here. Thank you for your support, Jonas. You're very, very kind. And just quickly to remind everyone, if you're watching on TikTok, my live stream every Friday is really designed for YouTube so we can use the full whiteboard. So if you're watching on TikTok, I suggest you jump to my profile, click on the YouTube link there, and join us on YouTube. Then you'll see the whole show. You won't miss the graphics. Right now on screen are 2 dictionary graphics, but you can't see them on TikTok. Okay? I want to say hello. Also, someone just joined us. My friend Wilson from Ecuador. Welcome, 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 Wilson. Okay, so is everyone clear about the difference between effective and efficient? They really are quite different. and it's important to understand the meanings. They're both adjectives. So grammatical correctness, there's no difference. They're both adjectives, right? I could say, she does efficient work. I could say, she does effective work. The difference is the meaning. And that's why I've resorted to dictionary examples here, because the meanings are different. Efficient. I'm so backwards here. Efficient has this element of not wasting time, energy, or money, right? If I clean my house, I want to do it efficiently. I don't want to spend all day cleaning my house, right? I don't want to spend a lot of time. I want to do it in short time, but get a good result. Okay, but if I'm sick, I really care about effectiveness. I want to take medicine that gives me the result of being healthy again, or at least comfortable. And sometimes I really don't care if it costs a little bit of money. I'll pay for it if it makes me feel better. So with effective, the most important thing is the positive result, the successful result. Okay? Any questions about this, guys? Any questions about this vocabulary violation? If you'll excuse me one moment, I'm just going to check in over there. A lot of people are actually watching on TikTok. So guys, if you're watching on TikTok and you want to see the live stream, go to my YouTube channel, which is in my profile. My show is actually designed for YouTube, for its full width of the whiteboard. So please jump over to YouTube at the Grammar Detective 2, and join us on YouTube. You'll see a much better picture, and you'll see all the graphics that are on screen. All right. So that, my friends, Pallavi's here. Yeah, great. Jonas. Yes, guys, grammar gumshoes, that's the difference between efficient and effective. Hopefully that clears up that vocabulary violation. All right. What's next? Okay, so tonight's topic, the main mystery, is a fascinating question sent to me by Jonas. I'm just going to switch off the TikTok. Maybe I'll just keep it on. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching on TikTok, my live stream is actually designed for YouTube, for the widescreen. So go to my profile, click on the YouTube link there, and join us on the live stream on YouTube. Much better way to watch the show. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a question. Is it effective to watch it on YouTube? Yes. The show is designed for YouTube. YouTube gives us a better picture quality. It gives me widescreen so we can fill the picture with the whiteboard, which is actually much farther to the left and right. It captures high definition. My phone, the picture on the phone isn't great, so TikTok is not ideal. Right now we're streaming to TikTok on my phone without the software and the graphics. So yes, YouTube is effective for live streaming. It's not efficient because it takes time. It costs money to stream with streaming software, and it takes energy, a lot of electricity, right? And in fact, I have studio lights happening in my studio here so that we can clearly see the whiteboard. So this live stream is not efficient, not at all. But I hope it's effective because I don't make it to be efficient. I make it to be effective because the goal here is to deliver some educational material to help you guys understand grammar better. Okay, the goal isn't to save money or time or energy. On Fridays, actually, I spend several hours getting ready for this show, preparing it, preparing graphics, preparing my home studio. It takes a lot of time, costs money, makes me tired. I'm an old man, I get tired. So it's not an efficient show, but my dream is that it's effective for you. Okay? This will be the last time I say this, but if you're on TikTok and you want to watch the live stream, go to my profile and click on the YouTube channel link because this show is designed for YouTube. Okay? I'm actually going to switch off the live stream now of TikTok. Okay, let me just clear that. And for those of you on YouTube, thank you for your patience. I've recently posted some video clips on TikTok, and a lot of people watched them. So I wanted to make sure we invited them to watch us on YouTube. But in my experience, if someone's on TikTok, they stay on TikTok. They don't jump over to another platform like YouTube. So we may not get anyone jumping over. Okay, so let's get to our mystery of the week. I thought it wasn't efficient. Yes, it's not efficient. It's effective, I hope, but it's not efficient, my show. Okay, let's go to our introduction here, and we'll get right down to business. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our question of the week. Let's see what it is. Alrighty, so that's a really good question. The question is, what comes after the verb in a sentence? Really interesting question, because sometimes it seems kind of obvious, right? Other words come after the verb. But if you really think about it, and if you've ever tried to make a sentence in English, you know there are a lot of choices after the verb, right? But let's start with the basics. When we make a sentence in English, the basic unit, the building block of a sentence is what we call the clause, right? The clause, not Santa Claus, that's a different clause, but the clause. So what's a clause? A clause is made of two elements. It can have more, but it needs two pieces. And those pieces are the subject, the focus of the sentence, the person we're talking about, the thing we're talking about, the activity or action that we're talking about. It can be any of those things, right? Usually not a verb, but there's a way to do that. But it's the focus of the sentence. So if you think about a movie, on the screen, some part of the picture is usually the focus, maybe the actor's face or a tree in the distance. Whatever is the main focus of the picture, right? In English sentence building, the subject is like that. It's the main focus. It's usually a person, but it's not always. Doesn't have to be. And a clause is made of the subject and the verb. Okay, so far so good. And I think you all know this, but a clause doesn't need any other parts. A clause is how we build an idea. And if we have a subject and a verb, sometimes that's enough. For example, she runs. She runs. That is a clause. We have a subject and we have a verb. And not only that, it's a sentence because it's a complete idea. We don't need any more words. That expresses an idea, okay? It expresses the idea that her hobby or her routine or her habit is she runs every day, every morning, whichever the case, right? She runs. That's a complete idea. It has a subject and a verb, so it's a clause. And it's a full sentence because it's a complete idea. Now, what if we just had she? That's not a clause. And it's definitely not a sentence. And in English, that has no meaning. That's baby talk. She. It means nothing. What if we just said runs? Runs. Runs. That's not a complete idea. There's no subject. It's just a verb. In English, that's garbage. That's garbage. You can't just walk around saying verbs. There's no meaning. It doesn't mean anything. So what this shows us is that in English, to make meaning, you need a clause. You need a subject, you need a verb, and it has to express a complete idea. Now, some verbs are a little different. What if I put the word she enjoys? Subject and verb. She enjoys. Doesn't work. And the reason is, although it has a subject and a verb, it's not a complete idea. If you tell me she enjoys, I have a question. I'm automatically going to say she enjoys what? Movies? Eating food? Running? What does she enjoy? She enjoys children. I don't know. It's not a complete idea. So that tells us something important. That tells us that for a clause to be a legitimate clause, it has to have a subject, a verb, and it must express a complete idea. That's important. Otherwise, it's garbage. No meaning. But now we have a question. What's the difference between enjoys and runs? What's the difference between enjoys and runs? Why can we make a full, complete idea with runs, but we can't make a complete idea with enjoys? We need an object here. That tells us there's something happening with verbs, that there are different kinds of verbs. And in this segment, I want to explore that because the question was, what can we put after the verb? Okay, in other words, what can we put after the clause to make a complete sentence? Because clearly, this is not complete. So it tells us some verbs don't need something after it. Some verbs do. Okay? So today I want to look at what can come after the verb. What's possible? What are the different structures that can come after the verb, right? So let's look at that. This tells us that there must be different types of verb, okay? Because runs expressed a complete idea, but enjoys doesn't. So I want to look at the different types of verbs. The first kind I want to look at is the type of verb that enjoys is. So let's use that example. She enjoys. Now, in some languages, maybe that verb doesn't need anything after it. But in English, it needs something after it. And the reason is, this is a transitive verb. Transitive verb. A transitive verb must have a direct object after it. It must have a direct object. Okay? Because of the nature of the verb, the meaning of the verb. In English, that verb means you enjoy something. You have to enjoy something. The same with another verb you know, which is like. She likes. She likes what? You can't just walk around saying, she likes, I like, you like. Makes no sense in English. You have to like something. If you think about it, the reason this is called transitive is because the subject does the action and the action transfers to the object. So there's a transition, transferring the action to an object, right? So for example, she enjoys food. She likes sports. Right? These receive the action. The food is enjoyed by her. Sports are liked by her. Okay? This is a transitive verb. It must have an object. And the object has to be a noun. So we can say direct object noun. But it has to be a noun form, which means it can be a single noun like this, food or sports. It can be a gerund noun like running. We've talked about gerunds a lot on this show in the past. And it's important to note, by the way, I'm just going to take my hat off. It's getting a little hot in here. This is no longer a verb. It's only a verb when you have the be verb with it, like am running. I am running right now. When you have just this form, it's a gerund. And a gerund acts as a noun. Okay? So we can have a legitimate noun, food or sports. We can have a gerund noun. We could even have a noun clause, right, with a subject and a verb. For example, she likes that you play sports. So a noun clause has its own subject and verb, so it's a clause, but it acts as the object, right? And this is like a fact. That you play sports is a fact, and she likes that fact. Okay, take a look at that. She likes that you play sports. She likes running. She likes sports. She likes food. Okay? We must have a direct object after a transitive verb. We can't have things going in the middle here. This is like a sacred partnership. One must come right after the other. So you can't, for example, put prepositions here. If you have a verb, transitive verb, the next word must be the object. Now you can have an article like the food, the sports, which, something, a specific noun, and those are fine, but you cannot have a preposition here because that would separate the object from the verb. Okay? Now, I'm just going to pause for a moment. So that's one example of what can come after the verb. If it's a transitive verb, you have no choice. You must have a direct object. Must have a direct object. Because without it, we don't have a complete meaning. She enjoys. What? She enjoys what? That's not a complete idea. She enjoys food. That's a complete idea. Okay? That's a transitive verb. Now let's look at an intransitive verb and what can come after that. Okay? Let's say we have an intransitive verb and we have a subject. We have an intransitive verb like runs. Now, with an intransitive verb, you do not have to have a direct object. In fact, you can't. You can have other things, but you can't have a direct object. And the reason is, for example, she runs. When she runs, it doesn't affect the object. When she runs, it affects the subject. So you could stop right there. She runs. That's a complete idea, right? It's not a full idea, it's not a rich idea, it's not a big idea, but it is a complete, simple idea. We could add information. For example, a prepositional phrase. We could say, she runs in the park. In is a preposition. 2 extra words tells us where this happens. She runs. Where? In the park. She runs. With whom? With her dog. With is a preposition. The other words make it a phrase. So you can put a preposition phrase after an intransitive verb. You can also put an adverb, like she runs. How? quickly. Right? Quickly is an adverb. It tells us how she does that action. You can put another adverb of time, for example. She runs daily. Okay, so the question we started with, what comes after the verb? If you have an intransitive verb, you can put all these things after it. You can put prepositional phrases, adverbs, adverbs of manner, adverbs of time, adverbs of reason. You could put an adverb clause like she runs. Why? Because she wants, subject verb, to be healthy. That's a clause. It's a dependent clause, but it tells us the reason why she runs. She runs because she wants to be healthy. So the question, what comes after an intransitive verb? All kinds of stuff. Prepositional phrase, adverbs, right? Can you put a noun after it? She runs dog. She runs the park. No, she runs in the park. The park is here and she's in the middle of the park. So we can't just put the noun park. That would be a direct object directly after the verb. Can't do that, right? So intransitive verb, these are your usual choices after it, or sometimes just a period. That's the full clause. Now here's where it gets weird. Some verbs can be intransitive. They can also be transitive. And runs is one of them. Now, it might have a different meaning, but you could say, she runs. Now I'm going to use it not meaning jogging, running with her body. She runs a company. Company is a noun. It's a direct object because it's a noun directly after the verb. Now that's a different meaning. That's a transitive meaning because she does the action and the action affects the object, right? Some verbs can switch, but when they switch, they have a different meaning. Okay? Here's an example from Jonas. She walks in the park, right? She can walk in the park. That's an intransitive meaning. Or she can walk her dog. And when she walks her dog, it becomes transitive meaning. She walks, but now this action isn't affecting her so much. This meaning is that she walks her dog. She makes her dog walk. That's what that means. It doesn't mean she walks with her dog. It means she does the action of forcing the dog to walk. The dog probably would rather sleep on the bed or on the floor. But, the owner of the dog knows the dog needs exercise, so she makes the dog go outside. Okay, dog, it's time to go, right? And forces the dog to walk. So she does the action, but the action affects the dog. How do you know if the verb is transitive or intransitive, or if it's a switcher, if it can be both? That's a big question. I want to tell you, first of all, that this is one of the most important grammar topics in English, whether or not a verb is transitive or intransitive. This is so important because it affects what comes after the verb. It affects all of the choices of the next words. Do you need a direct object, which can only be a noun or a noun form of some kind? Or can you put adverbs directly after the verb? Can you put prepositional phrases? Or can I also put a noun here with a different meaning? These are big questions, and they're important questions because sometimes a sentence is long. So how do we know what comes after the verb? The most direct way to know if a verb is transitive or intransitive is to look in the dictionary. a lot of people don't want to hear that, especially a lot of young learners. They don't like dictionaries. They don't want to carry a big book. Well, you can use an online dictionary. But the truth is, the dictionary tells you right away with a I intransitive or a T transitive or a I/T right after the word. It's so important that it's one of the first things the dictionary tells you, even before the definition. So you can look in the dictionary. You can also learn over time. It's slower, but you can learn over time by reading a lot and noticing what comes after the verbs, right? If you see a noun coming after the verb, a direct object, you know it must be transitive. So if you're reading, pay attention to what comes after the verb and learn from your reading. Or you're listening, which is harder because you can't see the word and there might be something in here that they don't pronounce. So that can be a little more challenging to learn transitivity from hearing. This is why active reading is important. Not just reading for information, but reading and paying attention to the grammar structure that you see. Okay? That's another way to learn which one's transitive and which one's intransitive. Now that takes a lifetime. That's a lot of work. It takes time to see all the different possibilities, right? I suggest a combination. When you're writing something and you have the time, you're taking the time to write it, check whether it's transitive or intransitive. When you're learning a new piece of vocabulary, you know, when you're learning new vocabulary words, and you learn a verb, don't only check the definition. You need to learn more than the meaning of a verb. You need to learn if it's transitive or intransitive. It's very important. So, you know, a lot of my students and a lot of learners love to learn new vocabulary, but oftentimes they only focus on the meaning. And they don't focus on the word form. What part of speech is it? Is it a verb, a noun, an adjective, an adverb? You need to learn that too. And they usually don't focus on a verb, whether it's transitive or intransitive. But you should. It's important. Now, I'm just going to erase this because we have more to talk about here. Now, the important thing to summarize here is that verbs can be transitive or intransitive, and that affects what comes after it. But there are other kinds of verbs. So let's stay with our idea of the clause, because that really is where everything starts. And if you don't have a clause, you have no meaning. You have nonsense. And we said the clause has a subject and a verb. And we said the verb could be transitive or it could be intransitive. And that affects what comes after it. But everyone out there knows that there are another group of verbs that work a little differently, right? For example, the verb be. She is. Now we know that the be verb is a little bit different, right? When we make questions, we just switch. For example, if I say she is a teacher, that's a statement. And if we want to make a question, we just switch it around. We just say, is she a teacher? And then we put our question mark. But if we had an action verb like she plays, if she plays soccer, is our statement. To make a question, we need the auxiliary verb. Does she play soccer? And there's no switching here. Here we have what we call inversion, switching the position, but here we don't switch the position. She plays, she play, right? So we can see, and many of you know this already, the be verb is a little different. And it should be. It's a powerful idea. Be expresses existence. What is existence, right? Scholars and philosophers throughout history have been wondering, what does it mean to be, to exist? Hamlet famously said in Shakespeare's play, to be or not to be. That is the question. Okay, so the be verb is a little different. And the be verb is another kind of verb that gives us different choices about what comes after the verb. And the be verb belongs to another category of verb called copula. Copula, or connecting verbs. And these can connect different things after them. So what are the copulas? Well, be verb, for sure, it's the most common. But there are more like seems, feels, appears. Okay? You can see the pattern here. These are like sensory verbs, right? I see another one here, looks, right? These are sensory verbs, right? They express the idea of the five senses. We can see something, so it appears, it feels to our touch, it sounds, right? It seems, meaning our evaluation, okay? But the question again tonight is what comes after these? There's a few choices. There are a few choices. So let's go back to our example. She, let's say, is. She is a teacher. Well, clearly teacher is a noun. So we could have a noun, she, copula, noun. But we could also say she seems happy. I'm not sure, but when I look at her smile and her laughter, she seems happy. What kind of word is happy? Happy is an adjective. Okay? She appears. She appears to be a teacher. There's an example. She appears to be a teacher. I see her in front of the class writing on the whiteboard. She seems to be a teacher. I'm not sure. I don't know her name. I haven't met her yet. But she seems to be a teacher. Here we have the infinitive verb. So clearly, after a copular verb or copula, we can put the infinitive verb. She seems to enjoy pizza. And you can usually have a noun after the infinitive verb, right? So there are some possibilities here. What about adverbs? She looks quickly. That's a little strange. Unless, now the word looks has two meanings. One is the meaning of appears. In my assessment, in my observation, she looks in a way that appears to be a teacher. She looks like a teacher. She looks happy. But we could use the different meaning, which is she looks, like moves her head and uses her eyes to look at something. She looks at the door. She looks at the viewer. In that case, it's an action verb, and you can do that quickly. So that's possible. But if it's an action verb, it's not a copula. So it doesn't really fit this group. Okay? So adverbs modify action verbs, not copulas, right? I can't say I am quickly. That makes no sense. I am quickly. I can use quick, the adjective. I am quick. That works, but not quickly. So no adverbs. What does that leave us with? Nouns, adjectives, infinitive verbs. No adverbs. Doesn't leave us with much. What about preposition phrases? Can we say something like I am in the park? Yes. Because you can exist in the park or on the beach. Right? So preposition phrase can come after a copula, no problem. And if you think about the logic or the meaning, it makes sense. You can exist in many places. I am on the moon, right? Very possible. Okay, so now we know that after a copula, we have several choices that can come after that. So Jonas is asking about this question, which seems like a slight delay. Yes, to describe other normal verbs. By normal verbs, I want you to understand that, Jonas, as action verbs. Am, appears, feels, looks, these are not actions. The subject doesn't do these actions, right? The subject's not doing these actions. The viewer is. When I say I am, watch this. Is this an action? I am. There's no action. I'm alive, so the be verb expresses my existence. But that's not really an action. Okay, so no adverbs. It tells us adverbs describe action verbs, not copulas. The function of a copula is to connect these words. Connect. Copula are connecting words. They're not actions. Okay, that makes them a little bit different. So far, so good? Now, let's review this. We have two kinds of verbs, action verbs, transitive action verbs, intransitive action verbs. After a transitive verb, you must have a noun object, a direct object, right after it. No preposition in the middle. Prepositions are like, don't want to do that. Don't want to separate the verb, the transitive verb, and the direct object. They have to be together because the subject is transferring the action onto the object, right? If Paul, let's say, where do I have here? Oh, right here. Think of the most action thing, like a sport. Paul throws the ball. So I throw with my hand, I make that action, and what happens? The ball flies away. So my action affects the object. Paul throws the ball, right? I take the baseball and I throw it. The action is in my body, but my action propels the ball. It affects the object. Paul throws the ball. And after the action, I can just sit there and watch the ball. The ball is flying through the air and I'm no longer doing the action. So I've transferred. Think of the physics. My energy has been transferred into the ball, right? My motion that I generate with my body physically transfers into the ball, and now the ball is independently flying in the air after my action. That's transitivity, right? That's a kind of clear and obvious example of transitivity, right? It's a physically observable transitivity. But they all work like that. So Suwon is asking, she looked away. So that's not the copular meaning of looked. That's the action meaning. Unfortunately, and it causes confusion, the verb look has both a copular meaning and an action meaning. When you think of the action, think of like looking, right? Looking with your eyes, moving your head, moving your eyes to see something. That's not what we're doing here. When I say she looks happy, I'm observing her. Her appearance makes me determine that she's happy, right? She seems happy. She looks happy. It doesn't mean she is looking, right? So unfortunately, the verb look has two different meanings. In your example, this is the intransitive meaning. It's not copular meaning. And look at this. Away is an adverb, right? And we know adverbs don't work with copulas. Adverbs do work with intransitive verbs, okay? And you don't need a direct object for she looked, right? She looked. Her body is affected, not something else like a baseball. You can just say, you can make a clause with she looked. She looked, period. Hey, she looked. Right? You go to the zoo, sometimes you look at the animals and the animal looks. Right? And you can add a prepositional phrase. She looked at me. Right? So back to the summary. We have transitive verbs, direct object. Intransitive verbs can have prepositional phrase, adverbs. What else did we say? Adverbial clauses, right? I feel happy, adjective, right? This is copular meaning. I feel like pizza. Like is a preposition here, right? So there are a lot of choices. We have three categories: transitive verb, intransitive verb, copular verbs. And each one has different possibilities after the verb. There's more to say on this, right? There's a lot of possibilities after the verb. Now we're almost out of time, so I'm going to cut it short. But I want you to think about those three types of structures, because out of those three are many possibilities, right? Look at the possibilities just with copular verbs: noun, adjective, infinitive, preposition. That gives us a lot of choices just with something like the be verb. I am a teacher. I am happy. I am, well, maybe not with a be verb. I appear to be happy. I am in the park, prepositional phrase. Transitive verbs, right? I stand. Or I could even do the present continuous version. I am standing, period. Clause, subject verb, clause. That's an intransitive verb. I throw the ball. That's a transitive verb. I transmit my energy and action into the ball. Now the ball is doing its own thing. Now the verb throw can also be intransitive. Whew, Paul threw. How? Paul threw quickly. You can put an adverb after the verb. I want you to stop here because these are three choices: transitive verb, direct object; intransitive verb, prepositional phrase, adverb, etc. Copular verb, noun, adjective, infinitive verb, or prepositional phrase. A lot of choices, but three large different groups, okay? So let's leave it at that for now, because that can give you a lot of sentence structures. And we're not even talking about complex sentences or compound sentences using conjunctions. We're just talking about making one sentence, right? And you can continue making different structures with those combinations. But our original question was, what comes after the verb? And the simple answer is, it depends on the type of verb. I think we've seen that, right? It depends on whether or not the verb is transitive. If it's transitive, you have one choice, and that's a direct object. If it's intransitive, you have more choices of what comes after the verb. If it's a copula, you have several different choices of what comes after the verb. So the question, what can come after the verb, goes back to the other question is, what kind of verb is it? And I guarantee you, some of you have never thought about verbs that way. You may have been taught that verbs are all one category. Verb. It's not enough. We have to think about verbs as being three types: transitive, intransitive, or copular, right? And within that group, we can even have switchers, transitive or intransitive verbs with different meanings. That's a better way to start thinking about verbs. So now that we've talked about it, what I'd like to see is when you study and you learn vocabulary and you learn verbs, find out if it's transitive or intransitive or if it's a copular verb. or a copula, whatever you want to call it. Some textbooks just call them connector verbs, okay, or linking verbs. Transitivity is such an important topic that on my YouTube channel, my web series, English Weirdness, we actually made a double episode. So 1 hour. Each episode is 30 minutes. We have part 1 and part 2 of an episode devoted to transitivity and showing you all the different structures and patterns that transitivity can produce. It's such an important topic. We needed 2 episodes to explain it all. So take a look at that on the YouTube channel. Okay, I think the episode is called Aya Moves the Big City. And you'll see a picture of a woman named Aya on the cover. Okay? Well, that's about all the time we have, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope that helped. And for those of you who joined us from TikTok, thank you. And hopefully you can subscribe to the channel because YouTube is still the best place to watch this. Now, we stream to a bunch of different places like Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, Twitter. Livespace is a new one that I like. But YouTube remains the best image quality, the best comment access, and most people use YouTube quite freely. So if you want to watch the show in the future, scan the QR code right now with your phone and go to the channel and subscribe. And if you missed part of this episode, of course, the recording will be posted later on YouTube in full and also in highlight clips. Okay? So I want to say good night to everyone. And thank you very much for joining us. Wilson, thank you. Suwan, thank you. Pallavi, hopefully you're still awake. Jonas, thank you very much for the wonderful questions. Yes, adverbs. Let's see, we have a question here. Yeah, this is a common question, right? In some languages, you don't need a subject to make a clause. You can go right into the verb. In English, you really can't. So a statement like, will take your class. It's missing the subject like, I will take your class. Now, there are some situations where you could drop it to be shorter in speech or like a text message. And the only time I would say that's possible is if it's 100% clear who the subject is. For example, when I text message with my sister, she knows it's me. So if I send her a message like, will talk to you later, she knows I mean I will talk to you later. It's completely clear. It's 110% clear. That's the only time you should ever drop the subject, right? In English, it's really strange to say things like, was a good movie. What was? Right? Even if I know what movie you're talking about, you should put a dummy subject there like it or that. It was a good movie. That was a good movie. In English, it doesn't really sound right to say was a good movie, right? Or can visit the movie, can watch the movie. Who, right? You really need a subject in English because that's what a clause is made of. No subject or no verb, no meaning. The clause is the basic unit of meaning in English, right? Okay, so this was a question Jonas asked me before. I think I don't have time to explain it fully. I apologize, Jonas, but we can take a quick look at it. You have to promise not to tell anyone. Okay, let's quickly take a look at this. What kind of verb is promise in this sentence? First thing to notice is the modal phrase have to. It's a modal. It's not the main verb. You have to promise not to tell anyone. Okay, so what kind of verb is that, he's wondering. Well, after our discussion this evening, I think it should be clear. This is our clause. We have our subject, you. We have our modal. And we have our main verb. So the question is, what kind of verb? Is it transitive, intransitive, or is it a copula? Well, let's find out. Let's test. What did we say about transitive verbs? We said right after them, we must have a direct object, which is usually a noun, which has to be a noun form. Paul threw what? The ball. Well, what comes right after this? Not. Okay, that's the negative particle. Not. That's not a noun. That's not a direct object. What about the next one? To tell. That's an infinitive verb. So we're using the negative particle not to make this a negative infinitive verb. Well, that's not a direct object. So that's clearly intransitive. Because if it's transitive, it must have a direct object after it. And the direct object must be a noun or a noun form of some kind. That's not. That's a verb. That's an infinitive verb. So this is clearly an intransitive verb, promise. Now, whether or not it's a switcher, a transitive, or intransitive, yeah, it is. It's possible. You could say a different sentence like, she promised a ring. She promised a ring to me, right? Or she promised me a ring. In either case, that's a noun, right? So this is one of those verbs that is both transitive or intransitive. Hopefully that answers the question, Jonas. It's definitely not a copula, right? If it's a copula, we could put an adjective after it, right? Let's test that. You have to promise happy. Makes no sense. You have to promise nice. No. It's clearly an action verb, not a copula. So which action verb? Transitive or intransitive? What comes after it? Not. And then this is not a noun, it's a verb. So it must be intransitive. It's the only option. Hopefully that answers your question, Jonas. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to say good night for the March 8th, 2024 live stream of Hard Boiled English Live. Hopefully we've cleared up some of the English mystery of the week. Hopefully we've had some new friends join us from TikTok. Those of you who have joined us from TikTok, thank you for doing that. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's the best place to watch the show. Just scan the QR code. And I hope you'll join us next week when we do this all over again. Every Friday. Oh gosh, something I have to tell you. In Canada, twice a year, we change our clocks to maximize sunlight. Because we're in a north meridian, some parts of the year we don't get a lot of sunlight. So we change our clocks next week. This show will be on a different time by 1 hour. So please pay attention to the time that I post in the graphic poster this week. Okay? It's going to be 1 hour different. And it will be 1 hour ahead of what you're used to. So right now we start at 4 o'clock my time. Next week it's going to feel like 5 o'clock my time. Okay, so pay attention to that. Use your time zone converter apps. If you don't have one, get one. They're very useful. Or you can just do the old-fashioned way and calculate hours from Greenwich Mean Time or your own time zone. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, and I'll see you again soon. Until I do, I would like you to keep studying, stay healthy, and as always, stay cool. Watching tonight's show. If you have an English grammar question, an English mystery, contact me on social media and send me a video of you asking the question. I'll investigate it on a future show. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell button to get all the updates about videos and events. If you're feeling generous, you can also donate to the production costs of the show at Patreon or buy me a coffee. Finally, until the next time I see you on Hard Boiled English Live, I want you to keep learning English. Stay healthy and stay cool.